pain. It is the great universal constant of the human experience. No one escapes it. It comes in 1,000 forms: the ache of loss, the sting of failure, the slow burn of disappointment, the reality of sickness, the burden of hard work. Our modern impulse, fueled by a culture of comfort, is to treat all pain as an enemy, something to be avoided, numbed, medicated, and distracted from at all costs. But what if this approach is fundamentally flawed? What if, in our frantic attempt to escape all suffering, we are inadvertently robbing ourselves of one of the most powerful sources of meaning, strength, and liberation available to us? Welcome to Existential Psychology Insights. I know this is a difficult subject, but it is also one of the most important. If you are here because you are seeking not easy answers, but deep, empowering truths, I want to thank you for your courage, and I invite you to subscribe and be part of this community. Today, we will explore a life-altering philosophical distinction: the critical difference between meaningless suffering and meaningful suffering. We will argue that the secret to a resilient and purpose-driven life is not the absence of pain, but the active transformation of one kind of pain into the other. It is about learning not how to avoid your burdens, but how to choose them, and how to carry the ones you cannot choose with a dignity that makes you unbreakable. Let's first define meaningless suffering. This is the pain that corrodes the soul. It is the suffering that feels pointless, random, and inflicted upon us. It is the chronic anxiety of a life lived in fear. It is the deep, nagging regret over past mistakes we refuse to learn from. It is the bitterness and resentment that comes from feeling like a victim of circumstance. It is the spiritual decay of boredom and stagnation in a life without purpose. This kind of suffering diminishes us. It makes us smaller, weaker, and more fearful. It is a heavy, rusty chain that pins us to the ground in a state of quiet desperation. Now consider meaningful suffering. This is the pain that forges us. It is the suffering that is voluntarily undertaken or heroically endured in the service of a higher purpose. It is the exhaustion of the student studying for an exam that will unlock their future. It is the emotional strain of a therapist listening to another's trauma in order to help them heal. It is the physical pain of the firefighter rushing into a burning building. It is the quiet, daily discipline of the writer facing the blank page. This kind of suffering is not pleasant, but it is purposeful. It is imbued with a why that makes the how bearable. This suffering expands us. It builds resilience, deepens compassion, forges character, and connects us to a sense of purpose far greater than our own comfort. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, in his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, provides the ultimate testament to this truth. From the unimaginable horrors of the Nazi concentration camps, he observed that the individuals most likely to survive were not always the physically strongest, but those who could find a meaning to hold on to, a loved one to see again, an unfinished work to complete, a responsibility to fulfill. Their suffering was absolute, but for some, it was not meaningless. Frankl concluded that the ultimate freedom, the one that can never be taken away, is the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This is the alchemical secret. The external event, the hardship, the loss, the challenge, is just the raw material. It is a neutral element. It is our internal response, our chosen attitude, that acts as the philosopher's stone, transforming the lead of meaningless pain into the gold of meaningful experience. When we view ourselves as passive victims, the pain remains just pain, a destructive, pointless force. But when we choose to see our hardship as a challenge to be met, a test of our character, an opportunity for growth, we fundamentally alter its nature. We infuse it with purpose. The philosopher Nietzsche saw this process as essential to life itself. He believed that the desire for a life free of all tension and resistance was a sign of decadence and decay. He argued that the human spirit needs obstacles to overcome in order to feel its own power and vitality. The archer needs the resistance of the bowstring to launch the arrow. The dancer needs the resistance of the floor to leap. We too need the resistance of life's challenges to achieve our potential. To wish for a life without any struggle is to wish for a life without any strength. So, how do we apply this in our own lives? Far from the extremes of concentration camps or epic myths, we do it by making a conscious shift in our daily orientation. First, we must stop seeing comfort as the ultimate goal. We must reframe difficulty not as a sign that we are on the wrong path, but often as a sign that we are exactly on the right one, the path of growth. When you feel the frustration of learning a new skill, recognize it not as failure, but as the feeling of your mind expanding. When you feel the soreness after a difficult workout, recognize it not as mere pain, but as the feeling of your body becoming stronger. Second, we must consciously choose our voluntary burdens. If you are currently experiencing the corrosive suffering of meaninglessness, the boredom, the anxiety, the regret, you must have the courage to trade it for a meaningful suffering. This is the philosophy of hard choices, easy life in action. Choose the discomfort of discipline over the misery of regret. Choose the anxiety of vulnerability over the loneliness of isolation. Choose the struggle of creation over the emptiness of consumption. You are the one who decides which mountain you will climb. Choose a mountain whose summit is worth the arduous journey. Third, for the suffering that you do not choose, the unavoidable hardships that life throws at you, you must practice the art of attitudinal transformation. You must actively ask yourself, given that this has happened and I cannot change it, how can I respond in a way that aligns with my deepest values? What can I learn from this? How can this experience make me a stronger, more compassionate, or wiser person? How can I use this to help others? This act of questioning is an act of reclaiming your power from circumstance. It turns you from a passive object of fate into an active subject of destiny. This is the journey from victim to hero. It is the realization that while we may not be responsible for the cards we are dealt in life, we are 100% responsible for how we choose to play the hand. The two kinds of pain will always be a part of our world. One path leads to a life that gets progressively harder, weighed down by the heavy chains of regret and weakness. The other path, while difficult underfoot, leads ever upwards, forging us in a fire that burns away the trivial and leaves behind only unbreakable strength and profound purpose. The choice is always before us. The choice is always ours.